order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could call roll, Jill.
Mark Schimmel,
Present.
Sue Heaston, here. Brian Huffman, here. Cassandra Liggins, Dustin Martin, here. Patrick McDonald,
Here.
Rhonda Myers, here. Dolores Nestor, here. Mark Shore, Suzanne Smith, Michael Wagner,
Here.
Danielle Whitebread. We have 10 present.
We do have a few visitors. I know, Rhonda, we said before that normally we don't have visitors come. Tonight is an exception. We have more than we've ever had, probably since I've been at the board meetings. A couple of our staff. I would like to turn this over to Jared for one of the introduction to a new staff member that is joining us tonight.
Thank you. So Matt DeMeo is over here. Matt, wave. Matt is our long-awaited candidate this evening that, so board willing, will be approving hopefully tonight for our manager of data systems. As you've heard consistently across the cabinet reports this evening at our orientation, we are definitely looking forward to being able to bring Matt on board. His expertise comes from actually the state of New York. We won't hold that against him, but he was the chief information officer for a school district of 14,000 students and worked directly with the BOCES, which are the equivalent of IUs in New York, in the area of data and really helping their system become streamlined and get our processes that we know are in dire need to make sure that we're getting your districts what you need in terms of billing and efficiencies as much as possible. So Matt, welcome to our meeting.
Would any of the visitors like to address us, the board? Again, welcome. Thank you. At this time, we have the presentation of the audit, and I'd like Mr. Stanton to introduce our auditor.
It's my pleasure to introduce Kevin Stoffler. He is a partner with the auditing firm of Smith, Elliott & Kearns, and he is responsible to oversee the field auditors and complete the final audit report, which you have in front of you this evening. So I'll turn it over to Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening. My name is Kevin Stauffer, a partner with SEK or Smith, Elliott, Kearns & Company. I'm going to go through the results from your audit here this evening. I know there's a small stack in front of each of your seats. I'm going to go through the one-page summary that Tim just handed out. And at the very top of that, it's a summary of June 30, 2019 audit results. So overall, I think you'll be very pleased with the results from your audit this year. The summary does incorporate the other three documents that you have, and that includes the audited financial statements, what's known as our management letter, and our communications with those charged with governance. So I've tried to take those other 100 pages, condense it down into about a 5-minute presentation for you here this evening. So overall, the second bullet point is the most important piece of the audit, and that is where we issue our unmodified audit opinion. And that, again, is the best opinion that we can issue on the financial statements. Essentially, what that means is that, in our opinion, we feel that the financial statements are materially correct and can be relied upon. We also issue an opinion on internal controls and on compliance over the financial statements themselves, and we issue a separate audit opinion on the major federal program compliance. So as part of that, we look at the total federal expenditures, which for the year for the IU were about $23.4 million. We have to test certain federal programs under that. This year we tested the Special Education Cluster, or the IDA program. So of that $23.4 million, 19.7 of it was spent by the Special Education Cluster, or the IDA program. And once again, happy to report that we didn't have any findings or compliance issues related to our single audit. The AFR was submitted during the last week of November to PDE by the due date. There was also a separate transportation funds audit. And in total, those expenditures were just under $10 million. And that report was submitted prior to the September 15th deadline for that. So again, positive notes all around related to the audit reports that were filed. Financially for the year, there was approximately $133 million in total revenues for the IU compared to the expenditures, which were right around $131 million, which was a slight increase in comparison to 2018 fiscal year. Overall, the general fund for 2019 did have an increase in fund balance of about $2.7 million. Compared to the previous year, that surplus or increase in fund balance was about $1.2 million. So the majority of these surpluses have actually gone into what's known as the assigned fund balance for future HVAC units. And as of June 30, 2019, there's about $2.5 million set aside for future HVAC units. Also this year, there were establishment of additional enterprise funds. Those related to the fingerprinting services, bus driver training courses, and sign language classes during 2019. On the full accrual basis of accounting, so not your general funds, what you're not used to seeing, or what you're not used to seeing internally, but for basis of accounting, we do have to record all long-term liabilities. When we do that, it actually has a negative net position. Most of you have it, I think, at most of your individual school districts, but that's the net pension liability for the IU recording your proportionate share of the underfunding of the PSERS plan. So in total, the deficit net position is about $180 million. That liability for the PSERS plan for the IU is about $181 million. So that's a direct result of recording that liability for the underfundedness of the PSERS plan. Also included is our management letter, which just consists of new standards that will be affecting the IU in the future. So those details are there in that letter. And we also have our standard communications letter. Had there been any significant issues in completing the audit or disagreements with management on accounting principles, we'd have to report on those there in that letter. I'm happy to report there were no such issues or disagreements. So that's why we just considered our standard communications letter. So just in summary, again, this year, we were able to issue an unmodified audit opinion, which is the best opinion that we can issue on the financial statements. Financially, there was an increase in all funds of about $2.7 million. And I also happy again to report that there were no findings related to our audit, both the financial statement audit as well as the single auditor of the federal programs. I knew that was a lot of information. I hope somewhat fairly quickly for you, but I certainly wanted to open it up for any questions, either related to the presentation here this evening or from the other documents related to the audit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time this evening. If you have any questions after tonight, please feel free to either contact me or filter those through Tim. We'd be happy to answer them. And again, thank you to Tim and his staff for helping completing the audit. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have our solicitor, Mr. Z, conduct the swearing in of our new board member, Rhonda Myers.
Thank you, Mrs. Myers. If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Myers,
Having been elected to the office of the Intermediate Unit Director for the Lincoln Intermediate Unit, State of Pennsylvania. We can break that up for you if you like. Usually you have it in front of you as well.
having been elected to the office of the Intermediate Unit Director for the Lincoln Intermediate Unit, State of Pennsylvania,
Do solemnly affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution
do solemnly affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
And that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And again, welcome, Rhonda. I appreciate you taking the time to serve on the LIU board. The minutes of the last meeting were previously provided. Are there any corrections or additions in the minutes? If there are no corrections or additions, the minutes stand approved as distributed. On the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve routine operational matters contained in the consent agenda?
Second.
Is there any discussion or anything that needs to be removed and voted on separately? Jill, will you take a roll call?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Sue Heaston,
Yes.
Brian Huffman, Dustin Martin, Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers, Dolores Nestor,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner,
Yes.
Danielle Whitebrett,
Yes.
10 in favor.
Thank you. For new business, we have the motion to adopt the 2018-19 audit report of Smith, Elliott, Kearns and Company. Is
So
there-
moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion's carried. Boy, I think we're going to have one of our fastest meetings tonight. The next new business item is for the CBIZ Consulting Services. This is the one that we had the presentation we actually had the prior 2 months, the one in January and February. We'll be voting on for RFP for the vendor to manage the proposed on-site clinic. Do we have a motion? Second? Anyone?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Is this is a motion really to go out for an RFP for the management. Is this the formal board approval of going forward with the clinic?
It's approval to expend $7,000 for the RFP for a national medical firm to run the clinic, and then we'll be coming back to the board for a motion to see whether you want to accept that RFP from that vendor. So it's not necessarily it's not a blanket motion to move forward with the clinic, just to go out and solicit bids of who might run the clinic.
So with several new board members, when we get to that point, we'll have an opportunity for some discussion and catching people up to speed on that, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Correct. And if the new board members, if you guys need more information about that, we had a whole booklet of information that was provided to us when we had the presentation. So if with myself or Dr. West or Mr. Stanton, we can get you that information for you to look through to catch you up. And if you guys have any other questions about the presentations, please feel free to reach out to us.
And maybe what we'll try to do is next time when we bring information back, maybe we'll just do another little presentation, some background for the newer board members, just to kind of get you up to speed. And we can also share that same information with you, but at least then you'll kind of know where we are and what we've been discussing, and answer any questions you may have. Okay?
Can we have a roll call?
Mark Schimmel,
Yes.
Sue Heaston,
Yes.
Brian Huffman, Justin Martin,
Yes.
Patrick McDonald,
Yes.
Rhonda Myers,
Yes.
Dolores Nestor,
Yes.
Suzanne Smith,
Yes.
Michael Wagner,
Yes.
Danielle Whitebrett,
Yes.
10 in favor.
Thank you. The next item is just for informational. I know in January we had talked about how we were kind of changing some of the things with the agenda, and where we wanted to have the first month to be informational only. The second month would be us to vote on it. So this next item is about the proposal to purchase new conference room furniture. And is Jared or who wants to speak?
A couple of months ago, the board members may remember you took action to recarpet one of the conference rooms, which was Chamberlain. And so that was done and turned out very nice. We would like to finish Chamberlain conference room by putting new conference room furniture in that room. I mean, this is also a conference center. The conference furniture that we have isn't the typical conference furniture that you would see typically today. It's what you have in front of you. You'll notice on that wall is a double row of seats that don't stack. They serve no purpose other than they're stored there. All our chairs are these blue padded chairs, non-stackable. The tables are the tables you're sitting at. You can't roll them across the floor. They get dragged across the floor. They're very heavy. They don't have modesty panels in front of them, so it requires the staff to skirt them every time they set them up. And so the furniture that we're proposing is behind me, which is this table that folds up. And what's useful with this table is that it has electrical outlets. This is not the exact model. It has the electrical outlets in the center of it, and it's a 5-foot table. What we're actually would be ordering would be a 6-foot table that would have the outlets at the end. It would have USB ports. When you're using this type of furniture that doesn't have electrical outlets, you have to stretch extension cords across the floor and then put carpet over them so that they don't trip. This is more suitable. Furniture, the chairs is what Jared has there. Both the table and the chair, they roll across the floor. It's much lighter, easier to set up than this type of furniture we have. With as many events that we have here at the IU, it requires sometimes the custodial staff to do a very quick turnaround because one event is leaving, another event is coming in, and it'd be a quicker setup, more appropriate type of furniture that you would typically see in your districts or see at another IU. The cost of the furniture just for the one room, just for the Chamberlain room, would be 15 tables at a total cost of $1,064 per table for $15,960. 60 chairs at a cost of $265.50 for a total of $15,930 plus freight of $1,450. So the total cost to do Chamberlain would be $33,340. That is a state contracted price. And my recommendation, if you approve it, the next meeting would be to take it out of a committed fund balance that we have for new equipment or for replacement of equipment that currently has a balance of $123,504 in it. Is there any questions that I can entertain from anybody?
So I know this is for the Chamberlain room. Are we looking at in the future of doing it systematically, of updating the other different rooms?
Yes. We kind of wanted to pilot Chamberlain and do that as a pilot room to test out the furniture and make sure that all the staff and the presenters were pleased with that type of furniture. We did have the tech department as well as the professional development office review the table and the chair already. Jared will be presenting, I believe, probably next month, a plan to kind of update the infrastructure of the conference rooms and bring them up to more date as far as the audio quality and video and the tech side of the conference rooms. And so that's next month, correct, Jared?
Yes, that's next month.
Yeah. And after that's done, then we'll again look at updating the furniture and the rest of the conference rooms. And then by that time, we'll have feedback of how things have worked out in Chamberlain, if everybody's happy with the setup that we had.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? And like I said, this will be something that we will be voting on next month. All right. For the president's report, first of all, again, I want to welcome our new board members. We did have, prior to the board meeting, we did have a new board orientation. So I appreciate they took the time to come early and to listen to us and the cabinet speak about the IU and who we are and how we do business. So I appreciate that time, and thank you to the staff for putting that together and for being here early also to welcome our new board members. One of the things I want to talk about tonight very briefly, and it's something that a lot of the stuff I talk about is things that I am dealing with, and I think it's important for us as a board, the more we communicate with each other, the more maybe we can realize that other board members are either having the same issues, our districts are having the same issues. How do we work together as a board, as the IU board, to best resolve these issues. So with communication, when we're communicating with our districts, make sure if there's, especially when there's comes down to costs of the IU classrooms, costs of anything that the IU is providing, make sure when you're talking to your districts that you're comparing apples to apples, because I know I've found that with my district. We're not always speaking the same language. So make sure that when there's costs involved, that we always have the right accurate information. So if that means that you want to come back to Dr. West and ask him, and he will help work with Tim and get you guys the right answers. Tim had mentioned in the new board orientation about access funding. That's one thing that I think our districts do forget, is the funding that is sent back to us when the IU does the billing for the access for the students who are able to get the access coverage. So always make sure that when you're talking to your districts, especially about finances, that you're comparing the apples to apples. With communicating, before you communicate to the cabinet members directly, please talk to Dr. West first. Either, he will go and find the answer for you, or he will ask you to communicate directly with the cabinet members. Same thing. I mean, I know our district, that's what we ask our board members to do. First, communicate with the superintendent before you reach out to the cabinet members or your leadership team. So please do that here also, so Dr. West can be caught in the loop. And then also too, like I said, we're all in the same boat with this is an IU. We're representing our districts, but we're also representing the IU. So feel free to reach out to the other board members if you guys have questions or concerns. And not even just with the IU things. I think this is a great forum for us as board members to get input from other districts. I know Susan had contacted me earlier last week about a question that something was going on in our district. So use us as a conduit to help each other, both as our own districts and then also as the IU. I want to also thank the board members who have recently stepped up to be on the comp planning committee, to be in the negotiations committee, and also on the personnel committee. So I do appreciate everyone stepping up for that. And with the comp plan committee meeting, we had a meeting on, what was it? It was February. It was middle of February. Yeah, it's all starting to run together. Too many meetings. One thing that they still are looking for is people, other people to serve on this committee. They would like to have some parents who have a connection with the IU, either as with students or had former students involved in the IU. They would like some parents like that, or community members and business members in the community that could partner with the IU, who could sit on the comp planning board. It's once a month. We meet from 3:30 until 5. You can Zoom in if you need to. So please, if you know of anyone who fit that bill, if you could reach out to Dr. West, let him know, and we can get them on board. And that's all I have. I'll turn it over to Dr. West.
Great, thank you. A couple of things just to bring new board members up to date. Dr. Murphy talked briefly about it during her new board member orientation, was our special education business rules and the task force that was put in place. Dr. Sensiting, when he was here as the interim executive director, worked with Dr. Murphy to put a task force together to begin to look at some of the questions and concerns and issues that districts had as far as our billing, transparency, communication. And so I think that was a really good step forward for the organization. And I think out of that has come the business rules that I've talked with the board about for several months. We're to the point now where those business rules, we're going to meet with the superintendents at the March SAC meeting, and Dr. Sensiting and I are working on a document that will list in summary form the business rules and what we're asking superintendents to sign off on in agreement that this is how we're going to do business going forward. And we can share those business rules with the board as well, more specifically in the future. But it really does talk about things like how do we, and Dr. Murphy talked about, how do we open communication between us and school districts that we're jointly making decisions going forward. Instead of the IU unilaterally making a decision about something, or a school district employee coming to us and saying, I really would like this additional support or help in this classroom, and us trying to please them and jump in and, okay, we do that. And then a bill comes to the school district that they're unaware of or hadn't budgeted for. The business rules will help us have a two-way partnership and communicate in a way that I think will alleviate a lot of that. It doesn't mean we won't provide the service. We'll do and provide whatever support schools want from us. It's just going to require communication at the district level, perhaps in a way it hasn't before. Because if we're going to now, if you don't meet the requirement of the business rules, for instance, a minimum number of students in a classroom or whatever that happens to be, we'll still provide that service to you as a district or a group of school districts in that classroom. But you're going to now have to agree to pay for that cost or whatever additional cost that may be. And that's going to require the superintendent, the business manager, and the director of special education to come together at the district level and agree to that before we move forward. Now that's a big change for districts and for us. And I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think it really is a way for us to communicate. So to say to school districts, we'll do whatever it is that you want us to do. We'll provide whatever service you want us to provide. But if it doesn't meet the rules, it's not part of the consortium. So those prices aren't shared equally among everybody. Those are prices that you're going to pay for as the single district. If you're the only district in that classroom, or if there are 2 or 3 districts, you're going to have to share that cost between you. Then there aren't surprises. The business manager knows what's going on. The superintendent has signed off on it. So when bills come from the IU, everybody should know. And then it shouldn't be, well, what's going on at the IU? Why are we getting billed for this when we didn't know? And so I think that will increase communication between us and school districts. And so we haven't had, the superintendents are supportive of that. And the business manager, I think all groups understand what we're trying to do, but you know, it's change, and I think it's the right thing for us to do. But the business rules, I think, are going to provide some guidance for us as an organization to hold us accountable, but it's also in a way going to cause communication to occur at the district level that maybe hasn't occurred when it comes to comparing apples to apples, like Sue talked about, to make sure internally as a district you're talking about that. And yes, okay, we know what's going on at the IU. Yes, they've reached out to us, and yes, we agree we're going to move forward with that. So we'll talk more about that, the business rules, and share those and give those to you so you can actually see them, and we can talk about them in more detail. But it really is, I think, a much needed change for us, and I think it's going to improve communication between the districts and us when it comes to things like billing and eliminate kind of those surprises that Dr. Sensing and I have both heard about since our arrival, was bills coming to school districts that they weren't aware of, and now where do we come up with this money that we didn't budget for? So I think that'll be a good thing. I'm excited about that. I think districts will, once we kind of put that in place and work through it, one of the things we talked about is it's always going to be something we look at annually to change. I mean, if we need to tweak it, we'll do that each year when we look at the business rules and decide, are they meeting the needs? What do we need to change? So just because we put them in place for next year doesn't mean that's the way it's always going to be. We would never tweak it. We wouldn't make any modifications to it. We certainly will if we feel we need to do that. But I do think that's really a positive move forward for the organization, and I think for our districts. I want to just thank Tim Stanton and his team for the work that they've done. You got the audit report. For us to have taken and centralized financing, which was a major change for the IU in the short period of time that we've done that. And then to make the other changes, transportation, and to be able to do that and have the findings that he had, I think speaks to the dedication of his accounting staff. And so I just wanted to acknowledge and thank him for his work in that, because I think we've tasked his division with a lot of work here in the last year, a lot of change, and not only with special education, it's been a lot of change for them too, but it's also been a lot of change for business services to take on the centralization of financing. And I think they've done a really good job with that. Dr. Trail, who is going to be the Assistant Executive Director, is going to visit us, is it March 11th? She's coming to Cabinet. And so Dr. Sensing and she have been talking, and so we're going to welcome her to a Cabinet meeting on the 11th. And then also she'll be coming back later for a tour of the facility. And so we're looking forward to kind of bringing her on board and getting her here full-time July 1st. I continue to go out and meet with the county superintendent groups. I'll be meeting with the York County Superintendent Group at the end of this month. I have the Franklin County Superintendent Group coming up here later this week. So we continue to have those meetings, and those are going well. So that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
I just want to make one comment. When you talk about the business rules, I do think it's not just making us, the IU, a better organization. I think it also holds our districts more accountable for when they make changes, because my understanding in those business rules is if they want to take back classrooms, there's a drop dead date, basically. So it gives us, the IU, a chance to adjust to make those changes, to do the transfer of entity. So it holds the districts accountable, and I think that's important too. It's not just the IU, it's also the districts, because again, this is a partnership. They need to be held accountable just like we are.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And one thing I wanted to make sure I didn't forget, when I talk to staff about my visits with superintendents, and when we talk to them about the business rules and the change, I have not heard from superintendents during my visits or throughout the year any kind of negative feedback towards the staff that are working directly with kids and staff in classrooms. Their concerns came to me and to Dr. Sensenig were focused on communication improvement, transparency of improving our billing, transparency of how we do billing, what our costs are. It's not even reduced costs of special education, because we all know that's difficult to do. Their thing is just help us understand what goes into the costs of the billings at the IU. And so I try every time I get in front of a group of our staff to make sure that they know when we talk about change, I am not hearing any feedback from superintendents critical of our staff. It's quite the opposite. They're very happy with the people that are in their classrooms, in their school districts, working with students and staff. So I never want people to get the wrong impression. When we're talking about making these kind of changes, it's not at all a reflection of our staff. It's just organizationally, we need to fix some things. And so our staff are thought of very highly by superintendents as far as the quality of the people that are in their buildings on a daily basis. So we have staff here, and I know people will hear the recording of this, and I just want to make sure people clearly know when we talk about that, it is in no way, I am not insinuating in any way, it's because of staff. The districts are very happy with that. I think it's just organizationally, we need to do some structural things and make some changes in that way. Okay, cabinet reports. Jared, we'll start with you.
We just got back. A few of our team members were recently at the Pennsylvania Educational Technology Expo and Conference. It's the state ed tech conference for all educational technology. There's about 3,000 attendees that come from across the entire Commonwealth, all 500 school districts and the IUs. And we play a pivotal role as not only our IU, but also PAIU in running that conference. And so proud to say that our IU alone presented about 6 hours of programming just from IU 12 as presenters, lead presenters for workshops, trainings, you name it. PAIU, we ran the entire Sunday event of free Sunday workshops. So even if you weren't a conference attendee, PAIU put on a full day of programming that all you had to really do was pay to park, and you could come and join workshops the entire day. And then the thing that I'm most proud of is our IU led an entire virtual experience, which it's the only conference that I am aware of its kind that has over 350 sessions that occur over the 3-day conference. Took us 2 days to set it up ahead of time, starting bright and early on Monday, we needed to go live. And we were able to live stream every single session from every single conference room so that people across the state that couldn't come to the conference still could actually go see the event live, or we were able to then archive and record every single one of those so that people could go back later. Oftentimes, if you go to a conference, you have 10 sessions you want to go to, and they're all inevitably booked at the same time, and so they can even go back and see sessions that they were able to do. So it really showed the power of IUs. It showed really the expertise of our IU and our ability to be able to put on essentially a cable network of the entire conference and do so in about a 2-day time in a foreign land. Really, it was the Pittsburgh Convention Center, where we had no footprint. We had no topology. We had nothing. We had to go in with all of our own gear and roll it in on Saturday morning, and we were able to pull it off. So it was really a great success for IUs in whole, but also for IU 12.
Thank you. Dr. Murphy.
Sure. One thing that I didn't share earlier is not only is special education supporting special education division supporting the special education services, but we also support preschool. We have just in this past month, this is the time of year where we do transitions and know the number of students and receiving preschool services who are coming into school age next year who will need some special education school age services. To let you know what kind of numbers that looks like, we've held over 700 meetings over the past 2 months of preschool students who are coming into school age for next year. Not all 700 will require some type of services, but there are a number of those students who will. A lot of those students are speech and language services, but many that are coming up more and more these days are students requiring autistic support services and students requiring some type of emotional support services. So we are working diligently with school districts. We include the school districts within those meetings, so school district special education directors can be prepared for what is coming on for the school age for the coming year. And we work closely with not only preschool, but school age special education directors and our special education school age program supervisors to ensure that the special education directors in the districts know what the options are for those students. So when they go to those meetings, they are most fully informed of what services could be provided to them. We service about 2,200 preschool students. They graduate at age 5 or 6, depending on if they get what's called an extra year or a bonus year in preschool. And so that's in addition to the special education work, we also support that work as well. And that's across, we support that work in some of your districts that host our classrooms. We have classrooms. We have classrooms at our centers. We have the York Learning Center and the Franklin Learning Center, which we have at least one classroom in each. And then we also have itinerant teachers, preschool teachers, who go out into various preschool sites throughout the 3 counties. Thank you for support for allowing us to do that.
Thank you. Dr. Sisson.
Well, for the benefit of the new folks here and for the veterans, you might be wondering, what does this guy do all the time? So in an effort to prolong President's short meeting, I will tell you. I do work with Dr. West a lot. We meet every day almost that I'm here. I spend time troubleshooting on his behalf, coordinating a variety of tasks, support the cabinet with various tasks they have or situations they have, work with superintendents, do some follow-up in that, whatever Dr. West assigns. I do supervise. I have 4 areas that I'm responsible for supervising. I like to think of it as supporting because they're pretty much self-starters. I work with the homeless program, Act 89, which is the non-public portion, ESL, and the adult ed program. So I've been busy in those 4 areas. I worked closely with Dr. Murphy and the special ed business rules and supported her leadership of her division among the superintendents and even the team that we assembled together. I've worked with her on the restructuring of special ed. We've taken a look and given her the charge actually to rethink and restructure in a more productive way so it can be more efficient and more thorough in our approach to special ed. I've added support to the HR. That's when I first came on in August. That was my first assignment, was to help HR get underway because they were down 3 people, and I really got to compliment the HR department because it's an 8-person department, and there were 3 missing when I got here. So compliments to Tracy for getting here and being the assistant first. She didn't tell you that, and then she moved right up to the head of the HR department, and she has restructured and reorganized that division, and I just compliment those people because they work very hard to make that happen. So that's what I've been doing. Just an observation. I don't know how many times I'll get to stand in front or sit in front of the board, I guess. But I do need to make a couple of observations. I need to compliment the team that you have assembled here. We said earlier in the orientation that you hire different people and you make those decisions. You've hired some very good people. They're very capable. They're very competent. And it's not a static group. They make it look easy sometimes because they sit here all cool, calm, and collected. I get to see them when they're not as cool, calm, and collected at times. and they individually, they've all gone through a lot. When Brad Sterner took on the TAC department, and that was a whole major readjustment for him and his thinking and his budgeting. So compliments to him. Lynn took on the business rules and the restructuring plan, which I already talked to you about. Jared Mader, he took on a whole lot of restructuring as he lost some staff there unexpectedly and had to reposition his group. So he responded to a lot of that. Tracy, I mentioned that already. She had a lot of new duties and a new team structure. Tim's probably had it the easiest of them all. No, I'm kidding. Tim took on the transportation department. As you know from last year, if you were here last year, we centralized the finance group, and he took a lot of the financing departments, the access program, and I guess what I'm just trying to say is every department in this IU has taken on a lot of struggles, a lot of challenges, and they did it in style and they made it look easy. And that's a compliment to all these folks and Brad, who's missing tonight. I'd be remiss if not saying something to Dr. West. I think you made a good decision there. He and I had a lot of conversations last spring. He's given vision, he's given direction, he's given stability to this organization from his role as executive director, and he's provided the leadership and support to everybody that's come to his office and needed it, from board members down to teachers, whoever. He's been there, and he's the one that's kind of making it all happen by giving that leadership and support. So just want to thank you, and on to the next person.
Thank you. Tim?
I'll just mention some initiatives that Business Services is involved in. One of the things that we recently started is anytime there's a new business manager in the 3-county area, we're bringing them in or asking them to come in. We try to get a group setting, if there's more than one, to orient those business managers. It's very hard to be a new business manager coming into your district if you're coming in from outside the 3-county area that we serve. For example, it'd be very difficult for them to pick up and understand how we bill for different services here at the IU. So we hope to alleviate some of the misunderstanding with the billing process by educating the new business managers. And plus, we want to educate them on the services that the LIU provides, and hopefully plant that seed that maybe there's some services that the LIU has available, but your district isn't utilizing them, and maybe it's an opportunity to save the money or save the district some money if they consider that specific service. So that has started, and we just finished up 3 or 4 new business managers here on February 28th, and I think that went well. The other thing we're currently doing is we currently have out as a pilot program a new payroll timesheet software program system to automate better our payroll process, and that's going well. We're looking at automating the transportation department. It's somewhat of a manual system now. We need to bring automation to it. Through that automation, we hopefully will be able to do it at perhaps a lower cost. And I think where there's some opportunity is if we have really good routing software and we can reduce the number of unloaded miles of our vehicles, that will translate into savings to the district. So I think Dustin brought up a couple months ago, are we sure that we have the right software system? And I responded to him that we will do our due diligence and investigate that. And to date, we have had presentations from 4 software vendors, and we're currently going through that process to determine if there's one software company that rises above the other. But I do believe the main item for cost savings is routing. That is very different from routing of school districts where you have bus stops. When you're picking up special education students, it's more like a taxi service, and it doesn't have bus stops, and it's not buses, it's vans. And so you've got 250 vans out there that are taken home by van drivers, or not at a bus depot. The vans are residing at individuals' homes across the 3-county area, and they're going to actual houses to pick up students. And so with really good routing software, we need to maximize the number of students on the van, maximize or eliminate unloaded miles. And then it gets further complicated that some students have to ride by themselves or can't ride with other students. And so there's a whole array of different various items that you have to take into account that's different than traditional routing of the large buses. So that's ongoing. I'm currently have spent a lot of time in the transportation department reviewing things to see if we can bring some cost savings there. Also, with the special education budget, we do have a draft budget at this time. It is my preference that we will wait until the May board meeting to present it to this board and then take action in June. Because what I have done is challenged my staff that, okay, you have this draft budget, but what about these new special ed business rules that we just incorporated? How does that impact the expenditures of that budget? And so that's the process that we're doing now, is auditing basically the class sizes, auditing the number of staff that are in those classrooms, and make sure that that budget is aligned with the special education business rules that the school districts approve. Because it's not appropriate to take all the time of going through and compiling those special education business rules, and then we present a budget that's not in line with what we just focused on. So that's what we're focused on now. I probably will not be in the May board meeting because I need to attend to a family medical issue, but I will send my very competent staff to present the budget to you, and you can see 2 or 3 of the other fine individuals working in the accounting department, that they're the ones that have taken the time to compile the special education budget and get down in the weeds of figuring things out, not me. So they will come to the probably the May board meeting and not me, but then I'll be at the June board meeting. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer? Thank you.
Hello. So one of the things that Human Resources has been working on over the last few months is with extended hours for our fingerprinting locations at FLC, YLC, and New Oxford. So we just started those extended hours this week. We have opened up hours to all of the districts, and then we have some districts that requested specific evenings. So we're working together on that. Some of it is a little bit of trial and error. We have the dates set, but we're trying to determine how many individuals have that need. Last night was our first evening. We did not have a very busy night, but in the future, it could get busier and busier because we're looking at about mid-year that we're going to have a big influx. So we're trying to stay ahead of that, but I don't know that the employees have yet looked into getting their fingerprints done. So it may be something that we see a bigger need in May, June, July. So if that happens, I'll continue to work with the HR professionals in the districts to arrange other times and extended hours. So that's something we're offering at no extra charge to the districts, and we'll continue to work on that. We do have an HR consortium meeting in April, so we'll discuss it at that time again to revisit and make sure that we're providing the service that's needed for all the districts. We did recently fill our HR coordinator position, so we currently have one position open. Once that one is filled, which is our generalist position that works on certifications, we will then have a full complement in HR. We are continuing to work on job descriptions, our HR manual, and then different procedures. we're hoping to have a lot of the new procedures ready for July 1st of 2020. So that's something that will be ongoing for a while, even beyond July. And then we're also working on a workers' compensation safety committee. Once that committee is in place and is consistently holding meetings, we will be offered a reduction in our workers' compensation premiums. So that's something we're also working on. Does anyone have any questions for me? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Just, we will, the board will be having an executive session following the adjournment of this meeting to discuss a personnel matter. And our next regular meeting is April 7th. Is there a motion to adjourn? The meeting is